Star Wars: The Last Jedi Explained. Now, it goes without saying that this video will be filled with spoilers, so consider yourself warned. Welcome back or welcome to John Armstrong Media. Please don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. So let's jump right into it. You know, one of the most profound and true lines of the movie was delivered by Luke when he said to Rey, "This is not going to go the way you think." And that pretty much sums up what I think of the movie. If you're anything like me and you had your theories and speculations about things like who are Rey's parents and who is Supreme Leader Snoke, only to find out that Rey does not come from some magnificent parentage, or that we know nothing still about Supreme Leader Snoke, especially how he was so quickly snuffed out. If you went into the movie with any of those questions and had your own theories and listened to other theories and believed in certain things, then you may or may not have been a little disappointed. I gotta tell you, I enjoyed it better on the second viewing, but the first time I saw it, I was a little disappointed because Luke was exactly right. It did not go the way that I think it was going to go. When I think about how they answered all of the questions that I had going into this movie, I can only compare it to if you ask someone a long viewpoint question and the only answer that they give back to you is yes, with no explanation whatsoever. So just as frustrating as that would be, that's how frustrated I was during the first viewing of this movie. So I asked myself, is it my fault for speculating and allowing myself to get so deep in the speculations of others? Or is it Disney's fault for obviously catering to the casual movie fan versus the hardcore? I don't know. For me, the jury is still out on that one. So a very beefy portion of this film is dedicated to Rey's belief that she can turn Kylo Ren back to the light. However, to her disappointment, she realizes that she has been manipulated by Supreme Leader Snoke, and the chances of her bringing Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, back to the light is very slim to none. The mind melding of sorts between herself and Kylo Ren was created by Snoke. This is just a farce and a trap, and it gives Rey hope that she can turn Kylo Ren against her master and back to the light. In a very shocking moment, Kylo Ren strikes down his master, and to the horror and dismay of Rey, names himself the new Supreme Leader, whose immediate focus is to destroy the Resistance and annihilate the Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker. So let's transition a bit and break down the movie. It's usually the case in Star Wars movies that we get to see several different worlds and set pieces. However, in this movie, we get less of that because when you break it down, most of the movie is just the First Order chasing the Resistance. After their attack on Starkiller Base and the destruction of the Hosnian system, the Resistance finds itself cornered like a trapped wild animal. Leia is subsequently injured during a TIE fighter bombing run led by Kylo Ren against the Resistance ship Radis, which was named after the Mon Calamari admiral during the Battle of Scarif in Rogue One. Kylo Ren hesitated and subsequently did not fire the deadly shots. However, the attack led by him manifested the same grisly results. Before we go on, just as a side note, what do you think about Leia's ability to survive the vacuum of space and propel herself back to safety? I know it's a movie and all, but it appears that they have taken the Guardians of the Galaxy approach to where a human being could actually survive the vacuum of space. Tell me what you think about that in the comments below. Moving on, after this crushing blow, Vice Admiral Holdo takes over command as the Resistance desperately tries to outrun the First Order. Unbeknownst to the audience and many of the characters involved, Holdo's plan is to escape to the planet of Crate, which we find out later is an old abandoned rebel base that was in existence when Leia and Holdo were much younger. This is where the Resistance will take its desperate last stand. Our heroes eventually find themselves facing down death and a powerful cannon that is very reminiscent of the Death Star. After Kylo Ren assumes the mantle of Supreme Leader, he brings down the full might of the First Order to stamp out the tiny Resistance. So on the tiny planet that looks a lot like Hoth from Empire Strikes Back, the Resistance launches a counterattack which can only be likened to a fight between a pit bull and a kitten, with the Resistance obviously being the kitten. They are in what appears to be literal rust buckets disguised as ski speeders. They make a foolhardy and unsuccessful attempt to skip across the salt plain and destroy the devastating and soul-crushing weapon of the First Order. Poe Dameron is forced to order a retreat because if he doesn't, every last one of them might die before they even get anywhere close to this devastating weapon. However, just when we think our heroes are done, a small bit of relief and rescue comes in the form of the Millennium Falcon, which is piloted by Chewie with Rey on the guns. It is at this point that Poe learns that not all fights can be won by jumping into a ship and blowing stuff up, a lesson that he obviously hadn't learned at the beginning of this movie, when so many Resistance fighters were lost on a bombing run that was successful but resulted in the deaths of so many. However, this time we find Finn is actually the one who is blindly charging forward in his suicidal attempt to save the Resistance. Finn is only saved at the very last minute when Rose crashes her speeder into his in a daring attempt to save Finn's life. It is after this rescue we find out that Rose likely has a crush on Finn. She steals a kiss and passes out, but it's unclear, judging by Finn's expression, as to how he actually feels. It doesn't appear that he was that into it, but by the very end of the movie we see him caring for her. Or it could be just a case of reading too much into it. I mean, all he did was just put a blanket over her. But you know what? I will not get into any speculation in regards to the last movie of this trilogy because it got me nowhere when it came to this movie. I'll tell you what it got me disappointed. So at this point, it appears that the First Order will have final and complete victory over the Resistance. However, the man, the myth, the legend, Luke Skywalker appears for one last time to save the rebels. By way of exposition from Poe Dameron, we as the audience come to find out that Luke has come to buy time to find a way to escape, which we believe up to this point only has one exit, which is out the front door that has just been destroyed by the First Order. As we all know by now, Luke's appearance served several ends. He came to face his former apprentice, he came to say goodbye to his sister, and his final act of heroism would serve to bolster his legend and establish a spark which would ignite to a blaze of hope for the rebels who will someday burn down the First Order. Can you imagine how inspiring a story would be of one man facing down and defeating an entire army? Very inspiring indeed. This will most assuredly bolster and replenish the Resistance. During this battle, Kylo Ren, who is visibly traumatized by the arrival of his former master, commands every single gun available to fire upon Luke and burn him to ash. However, to his shock, amazement, and likely terror, Luke emerges unscathed, unsinged, unharmed, and unfazed. Kylo Ren knows now that he must face Luke. Kylo wants to know if Luke has come to forgive him for all of the terrible things that he's done. Luke replies, no. By this time in the movie, all hope had been lost for Kylo Ren. I mean, even his mother, his own mother, gave up on him. You know you're done when your mom gives up on you. Getting back to the battle though, we find that Luke's duel with Kylo Ren is a farce. Not only is he distracting the First Order, but he's not even really there. Luke actually projects himself onto the planet all away from his hiding spot and sanctuary of Ahch-To. This explains why Luke looks so much younger and not as disheveled as he was on Ahch-To earlier in the film. Now, we have never seen force projection in any of the films. However, this is a phenomenon that we find in the non-canon expanded universe. So in the Dark Empire series, Luke has actually turned to the dark side and is under the power of the Emperor, where he is able to project copies of himself whenever he needed to. Also in Dawn of the Jedi, dark side of the Force wielders are able to project shadows of themselves that are able to explore long distances and other planets without actually leaving whatever planet or area they were on. So there is precedent for it. With this new ability, Luke is able to save the Resistance. Nonetheless, in the end, it appears that it costed him his life. To the horror and likely embarrassment of Kylo Ren, it is only after the Resistance has escaped that he actually finds out what happened. At this point, Kylo Ren probably felt like some of us felt when we found out that Rey's parents were nobodies and we learned absolutely nothing about Supreme Leader Snoke. I really thought that they were rehashing a plot point from A New Hope when Luke lowered his lightsaber. I really thought that he was going to go out in the same fashion that Obi-Wan went out in. And at this point, I was like, oh man, come on. haven't we seen this before? When Kylo finally delivers the killing blow, Luke is left unscathed. They even go on to solidify the rules by having Kylo stick the blade through Luke, and then Luke sticks the proverbial dagger in Kylo Ren by delivering a line that sounds a lot like something Han Solo would say. "See you around, kid." Luke disappears, and Kylo Ren realizes that he has just been beaten. Luke spends his final moments alone on Ahch-To. However, he goes out in peace and with purpose. He disappears while watching two suns in the sky, which harkens back to the scene in A New Hope where he was doing the exact same thing. Luke disappears just like Obi-Wan and Yoda, which indicates that we will see him again as a Force ghost, because someone will need to be there to guide Rey as she rebuilds the Jedi Order. In one of the final scenes of the film, we see Rey using the Force to clear boulders from the hidden exit of the Rebel base. They quickly board the Millennium Falcon and make a hasty escape, but not before Rey and Kylo Ren have one more encounter. In fact, I don't believe a single word was spoken between the two of them. However, the body language, action, and tension said it all. As Rey and Kylo Ren stare at each other, Rey closes the Falcon's entry ramp without saying a word. This solidifies that Rey is done trying to save Ben Solo, and that the next time that they meet, one of them will have to meet a swift end. Now let's talk about the final scene of the movie. We're back on Canto Bight with one of the slave boys that was working in the Fathier stables. Now if you blink, you might miss it. The little boy that Rose showed the resistance ring to very casually uses the Force to summon the broom to him. It appears that the Force hasn't just awakened in Rey, but likely it has awoken many others. So now here's your part. Tell me in the comments below what you thought. Did it turn out the way you wanted it to? Was it a bit ruined for you by all the speculation? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you for your time. Have a great day or night. I am John Armstrong Media, and I approve this message.